In the depths of the Great Depression, a school custodian from rural New England quietly bought a single share of stock each month using a method passed down from his own father. When he passed away in his 90s, his hidden fortune shocked everyone who thought they knew him. That method appears as number 7 on our countdown, and you can begin it tomorrow with nothing more than a checking account. Number 14 once appeared in nearly every classroom, then vanished from textbooks around the same time the country changed how it thought about money. And the very first strategy has quietly built family wealth since before the Civil War. Yet, the banking industry spent generations trying to convince you it was obsolete. What your grandparents did wasn't magic, it was memory. These 20 tactics weren't hidden away in some vault. They were dinner table wisdom. The kind your elder relatives passed along without a second thought. Before we dive in, please take a second to subscribe to Winds of Thought, because the value of what follows would cost you a fortune from any paid advisor. Number 20. The envelope money system. Long before plastic cards ruled our wallets, American households managed every penny using a method so simple it feels almost too basic. On payday, a wife would bring home the week's cash and sort it into clearly labeled paper envelopes: rent, food, electricity, church donation, savings. Each envelope held its exact portion. Once the grocery envelope ran dry, that was it. You ate from the pantry until next payday. No borrowing from the rent envelope. No last-minute deals with yourself. Back in 1955, the typical family earned around $4,400 annually and still managed to put away almost 8% of it, using nothing but discipline and paper. That savings rate beats what most families achieve today, even though incomes are 10 times higher. Why did it work? Because cash in hand is tangible. You can feel an envelope grow lighter. You can watch your Tuesday dinner budget dwindle between your fingers. Credit card companies built their entire empire on destroying that physical sensation. Tap a card, feel nothing. Open an envelope, feel everything. Saving is a feeling, not a math problem. A famous radio personality built a fortune repackaging this idea, but your great-grandmother did it for free. Number 19. Invest in tools, not repairmen. In 1948, a basic wrench set from a department store cost about $13, roughly a day's wage for a factory worker. That single purchase could save $200 a year in mechanic and plumber fees. Your elder relative didn't hire someone to fix a dripping tap. He bought a wrench and figured it out himself. Not because he loved fixing things, but because every dollar paid to a stranger was a dollar that left the house forever. The rule was simple. Every tool you own cancels a future service bill. A $3 caulking gun saved hundreds on winter sealing. A $9 soldering iron meant you repaired your own radio. In the 1950s, hardware stores sold more tools to homeowners than to pros, because regular people understood the math. The tool pays for itself the first time you use it. Every use after that is pure gain. Today, Americans waste over $500 billion annually on home fixes that a basic toolbox and a 10-minute video could solve. Your grandparents' workshop wasn't a hobby. It was a steel and wood investment account. Number 18. Plant a kitchen garden. During World War II, so-called victory gardens produced 40% of all vegetables eaten in America. The government printed free guides showing families how to turn a backyard into a grocery aisle. But here's what history leaves out. Millions kept those gardens growing long after the war because the numbers were stunning. A 5-cent packet of tomato seeds in 1946 could replace $30 worth of store tomatoes over one summer. Families with a quarter-acre plot saved the equivalent of 2 weeks of grocery money every growing season. That knowledge passed down like a family recipe. Your grandmother knew exactly which crops gave the highest return per square foot: pole beans and zucchini for volume, herbs to replace costly seasonings, tomatoes because the store-bought ones tasted like cardboard anyway. The modern version is even better. A $200 raised bed can produce over $600 worth of organic vegetables in a single summer. The soil hasn't changed. The math hasn't changed. We just stopped getting our hands dirty. Number 17. The Christmas Savings Club. Starting in the early 1900s, banks offered a strange little product that millions of families loved. Each week, you walked into your local savings office and deposited a small set amount, often 50 cents to $2, into an account that locked up your money until December. First, no withdrawals allowed. By Christmas, you had $25 to $100 waiting. At its peak in the 1960s, over 17 million Americans had these accounts. The trick wasn't the interest, which was laughably tiny. The trick was the commitment device. Money you couldn't touch was money you couldn't blow on impulse. Banks eventually killed the product, not because it failed, but because it worked too well for customers and not well enough for the banks. Credit cards earned billions on Christmas debt at 18% interest. The Christmas Club earned almost nothing in fees, so it disappeared. You can recreate the exact same principle today with an automatic savings transfer. Hide money from yourself on a schedule. Number 16. Buy in bulk during harvest. Your grandmother didn't pay $2 for a can of green beans in January. She bought 40 pounds of beans in August for 4 cents a pound, then spent a Saturday canning enough to last until spring. Families with root cellars and pantry shelves treated autumn like a financial holiday. Bushels of apples for $1.50 from the orchard, 50-pound sacks of potatoes from the farm stand. Whole sides of beef direct from the rancher, cut, wrapped, and frozen for a fraction of supermarket price. In 1958, a family that preserved food in season cut their annual grocery bill by nearly 1/3. That math still holds. A quarter cow from a local ranch runs about $5 to $7 per pound for every cut, from ground beef to ribeye. Supermarket ribeye alone costs $15 a pound. The catch is upfront money and a chest freezer, which is exactly why it favored families who thought in seasons, not paychecks. Plan ahead. Spend once. Eat for months. Number 15. Trade labor instead of cash. Before the tax code got complicated, Americans swapped work like currency. The mechanic fixed the dentist's car. The dentist fixed the mechanic's teeth. No money changed hands. In rural areas through the 40s and 50s, barter networks were so common that some families went months without spending cash on services. A farmer traded eggs and milk to the handyman for a repaired fence. The handyman traded fence repair to the schoolteacher for tutoring his kids. Everyone's needs got met, and the cash in their pocket stayed right there. The trick was knowing your own worth. What skill do you have that someone else needs? Your elder relative didn't see himself as having a job. He saw himself as having abilities, and abilities could be traded anywhere. Today, platforms like neighborhood apps and local Facebook groups have accidentally rebuilt these barter networks. People swap babysitting for lawn care, accounting help for home repairs. The system never broke. We just forgot we were allowed to use it. First turning point. Everything so far has been about spending less. The next set is about making money multiply. And this is where working-class Americans of the 40s and 50s had knowledge that Wall Street later spent decades trying to bury. Because the truth is, ordinary people back then understood compound growth, asset building, and passive income better than most college graduates today. They just used different words. They called it common sense. Number 14. The side hustle before it had a name. In 1962, nearly 1 in 4 American men held some form of second income. Not freelance apps or gig work, actual small businesses run from garages, basements, and kitchen tables. Your grandpa might have been a machinist by day and a furniture refinisher on weekends. Your grandma sold baked goods, did sewing, or ran a tiny mail order operation from classified ads in the back of a weekly magazine. A 3-line ad cost $75 in 1955 and could bring in $50 a month in steady orders. Serious money when the median household income was $4,400. High schools taught shop class, home economics, and bookkeeping specifically so graduates could run these small operations. When those classes were cut starting in the 70s, an entire generation lost the practical skills that made side income possible. Today we celebrate the gig economy like it's a new invention. Your grandmother was running a gig economy from her kitchen in 1953. She just didn't need an app. Number 13. Pay cash and haggle on everything. Your elder relative never paid sticker price for anything in his life. Not a car, not a washing machine, not a used lawnmower from a neighbor's yard sale. Cash was king because cash was immediate, and sellers gave discounts for immediacy. Why would a salesman turn down guaranteed money today for a promise of maybe money tomorrow? Walk into a furniture store in 1960 with $200 in your hand and offer $160. The salesman took it because $160 today beat $200 on a payment plan that might never get paid. Car dealers, appliance stores, even doctors offered cash discounts routinely. A 1959 survey found that Americans who paid cash for major purchases saved an average of 12 to 15% versus those who used installment plans. That's not a coupon, that's a wealth-building habit. The same principle applied to everyday deals, buying a slightly dented can for half price, asking the butcher for soup bones that would otherwise be thrown away. Every dollar saved on a purchase was a dollar that could be saved or invested. We stopped negotiating when fixed prices and credit cards made it feel awkward, but the leverage of cash in hand has never gone away. Try it at a furniture store next Saturday. You'll be surprised. Number 12. Rent out a spare room. In the 40s and 50s, taking in a boarder was one of the most common ways American families added to their income. Census data from 1950 shows nearly 10% of households had at least one non-family member paying rent under their roof. A spare bedroom brought in $8 to $15 a week, enough to cover the entire monthly mortgage on a modest home. Families saw their houses not just as shelter, but as income-producing assets. The boarder got a clean room, shared meals, and a place at the table. The family got financial breathing room. It was normal, mutually beneficial, and nobody thought twice. When suburban sprawl created larger homes with more bedrooms in the 60s and 70s, the boarder tradition faded. Privacy became the new luxury. Spare rooms sat empty. But the math never changed. Today, short-term rental hosts earn an average of $14,000 a year, renting out extra space. Your grandmother earned the equivalent doing the exact same thing 70 years ago. She just didn't need a website. Number 11. Buy whole life insurance young. This one is controversial, and financial experts will argue about it until the end of time. But here's what actually happened. In the 40s and 50s, working-class families bought small whole-life policies on their children, sometimes within weeks of birth. A $5,000 policy on a newborn cost $3 a month in 1950. By the time that child turned 40, the policy had built up cash value they could borrow against for a down payment on a house, a business startup, or an emergency fund. The loan interest was fixed and low, often 5%, no matter what banks were charging. Millions of Americans used these policies as their personal banking system, borrowing from themselves instead of from institutions that could deny them credit. The insurance industry eventually shifted to selling term life and investment products with higher fees. Whole life became unfashionable. Financial gurus called it a bad investment. But the families who kept those old policies quietly accumulated wealth that nobody could take away. The trick was never about the death benefit. It was about creating a private, guaranteed savings vehicle that grew every single year, no matter what the stock market did. Number 10. Fix and flip broken goods. Your grandpa could walk into any yard sale, spot a broken radio, buy it for 50 cents, replace a tube worth a nickel, and sell it for $8 at the flea market the next weekend. This wasn't a pastime. It was a repeatable money machine used by millions of Americans. How many items have you thrown away that needed 5 minutes of work? Furniture with loose joints got reglued. Lawnmowers with dirty spark plugs got cleaned. Bikes with flat tires got patched and painted. The profit margins were huge because most people threw things away rather than learn to fix them. In the 60s, swap meets and flea markets were billion-dollar economies driven by people who understood that broken does not mean worthless. It means discounted. The same principle drives the modern resale economy on online marketplaces. A $20 piece of furniture from a thrift store, cleaned and tightened, sells for $150. The skills haven't changed. The marketplaces have only gotten bigger. Second turning point. Now here's what the history books leave out. The wealthiest generation of working-class Americans wasn't wealthy because of high wages. Wages were modest. They were wealthy because of accumulation habits so deeply ingrained they felt automatic. Every trick on this list shares the same DNA. Spend less than you make what you have, work harder, never pay someone for something you can learn yourself. These weren't financial strategies. They were cultural values passed down at kitchen tables and practiced so consistently they became invisible. The next tricks show how those values built real generational wealth. Number 9. Buy used cars and drive them forever. In 1957, the average new car cost $2,749. The average used car cost $1,200. Your elder relative bought the used one every single time and drove it until the wheels were ready to fall off. He wasn't being cheap. He was being strategic. A new car lost 25% of its value the moment it left the lot, and he knew that because his father told him, and his father's father told him. The money saved, roughly $1,500 per purchase, went into savings or home improvements that increased property value. Over a lifetime of buying used, a family could save the equivalent of an entire house. The auto industry spent billions on advertising to make new car ownership an emotional identity. You are what you drive. Your grandpa didn't buy that identity. He drove a 6-year-old sedan and owned his home outright by age 50. Number 8. The layaway mindset. Before credit cards took over in the 70s, Americans used layaway to buy what they couldn't yet afford. You picked the item, the store held it, you paid a little each week until the balance was zero. Only then did you take it home. No interest, no debt, no risk. The system forced patience. If you lost interest before paying it off, you got your money back and the purchase never happened. That built-in cooling period eliminated impulse buying entirely. By 1965, layaway accounted for over 30% of department store revenue. Then credit cards arrived, offering instant gratification at 18% interest, and retailers realized they made far more money when customers bought on impulse and paid interest for years. Layaway was deliberately phased out, not because customers stopped wanting it, but because it was too good a deal for the buyer. Don't take it home until you can actually afford it. That single habit is the most powerful wealth-building discipline on this entire list. Number 7. Dividend reinvestment plans. Remember the Vermont janitor from the opening? He used a system called a DRIP. Starting in the 1960s, companies like AT&T, General Electric, and Procter & Gamble let small investors buy stock directly, skip the middleman, and automatically reinvest dividends into more shares. No minimum balance, no fees. You could start with a single share worth $30 and let compound growth do the rest. Every quarter, your dividends bought more stock, and those new shares earned more dividends. The cycle accelerated year after year. A $500 investment in Procter & Gamble in 1960, with dividends reinvested, would be worth over $600,000 today. The trick required no expertise, no stock picking, no market timing, just patience and consistency. The janitor, Ronald Reed, did exactly this for over 60 years. He bought shares, reinvested dividends, and never sold. When he died at 92, his small town was stunned to learn that the man in flannel shirts and a used Toyota had quietly accumulated $8 million. Drips still exist today. Most major companies offer them. The method hasn't changed in 60 years. It just stopped being taught. Number 6. Buy tax-delinquent properties at auction. County governments have been selling properties whose owners fell behind on taxes at public auction since the 1800s. In the 40s and 50s, savvy Americans attended these auctions regularly, picking up vacant lots, small parcels, even houses for pennies on the dollar. A $5,000 property with $300 in back taxes could be bought at auction for as little as $300 plus fees. Your grandpa knew the county clerk's auction schedule the way other men knew baseball stats. Some families built entire real estate portfolios this way, buying cheap land, holding it, and selling decades later when the area developed. The system still operates in all 50 states. County tax auctions happen every year. The properties are listed publicly. The bidding starts at the amount of unpaid taxes. Most Americans have never attended one because nobody told them they could. Number 5. Make it yourself. In 1955, a store-bought dress cost $8.95. The fabric to make the same dress cost $1.50, and your grandmother already owned the sewing machine. A wooden bookshelf cost $22 at the furniture store. The lumber cost $4, and your grandpa built it on a Saturday morning. This wasn't about being crafty. It was about understanding the markup. Every product you buy contains the cost of materials, labor, shipping, advertising, retail markup, and profit margin. When you make it yourself, you pay for materials and nothing else. Families that sewed, built, repaired, and preserved kept 60 to 80% of the retail cost in their own pockets. Over a year, that added up to thousands of dollars that stayed in the household instead of flowing out to corporations. The maker economy has come full circle. Online artisans, woodworkers, and home sewers are rediscovering what every American household knew in 1955. The cheapest way to get exactly what you want is to build it yourself. Number 4. Live below your means on purpose. This wasn't poverty. This was strategy. Families in the 1950s who earned $5,000 a year lived like they earned $4,000. The missing $1,000 went into savings, property, or investments before a single bill was paid. They drove smaller cars than they could afford. They wore clothes an extra season. They ate at home 6 nights a week, not because they had to, but because they understood that visible wealth and actual wealth are two different things. Which neighbor was really richer? The one with the new Cadillac and big debts, or the one with the old Ford and 3 rental properties? In the 1950s, the personal savings rate in America peaked at over 10%. Today it hovers around 4%, while household debt has exploded to $17 trillion. The math is not complicated. Your grandparents spent less than they earned on purpose, consistently, for decades. That gap between income and spending wasn't deprivation. It was the engine that built everything they owned. Number 3. The house hack. This trick was so common in the 40s and 50s that real estate agents called it by name, long before the internet invented the term. A young couple would buy a small duplex or a house with a rental unit. They would live in one side and rent out the other. The rental income covered most or all of the mortgage payment, meaning the family effectively lived for free while building equity. Federal Housing Administration loans after World War II made this especially easy. A veteran could buy a duplex with almost nothing down. By the time the mortgage was paid off, the family owned the income-producing property outright. Many families repeated this, buying a second duplex, then a third, until they had a small portfolio of rental properties generating passive income for retirement. No pension required. No 401k. Just real estate bought smartly and held patiently. The strategy still works in hundreds of American cities where duplexes sell for reasonable prices. The math hasn't changed since 1947. Number 2. Teach your children to earn. This wasn't about child labor. It was about financial literacy passed down through experience. By age 10, most American children in the 1950s had earned their own money. Paper routes, lemonade stands, mowing lawns, shoveling snow, collecting bottles for deposit refunds. The money was small, but the lessons were massive. Kids learned that income requires effort, that saving creates options, and that spending without thinking leaves you with nothing. Families that taught earning early produced adults who managed money instinctively. The paper route kid who deposited half his earnings every week became the adult who maxed out his retirement account automatically. It wasn't genetics, it was training. Give a child $1, and they spend it. Teach a child to earn $1, and they learn for life. The most powerful financial trick on this list is not a trick at all. It is a parenting decision. Teach a child to earn, save, and invest before they turn 12, and you have given them something no inheritance can match. Number 1. Own your home, free and clear. This was the ultimate goal of every money-making trick on this list. Not a bigger house, not a fancier house, a paid-off house. In 1960, the average American paid off their mortgage in 15 to 20 years. They made extra payments. They skipped vacations to put lump sums toward the principal. They refinanced only to shorten the term, never to cash out. The day the mortgage was burned, when families literally set the mortgage paper on fire in the fireplace as a celebration, was the day financial freedom began. Every dollar that had gone to the bank now stayed in the family. A family with no mortgage payment needed dramatically less income to live well. They could retire earlier, work less, give more, and weather any economic storm. The average American mortgage today stretches 30 years. Banks earn more interest the longer you pay. The 15-year mortgage your grandfather insisted on cost the bank decades of profit. That's exactly why nobody recommends it anymore. Every financial trick on this list funneled toward the single outcome: spend less, earn more, save the difference, pour it into the house, own it free and clear. Then let the money that used to flow to the bank flow into your own future. Your grandparents knew this. Now you know it too. The question is whether you will do what they did or keep scrolling. Try one trick this week, just one, then come back and tell me if your grandfather was wrong. If you found value here, hit the like button to help Winds of Thought bring you more forgotten wisdom. And don't forget to subscribe.